Welcome back. Here is yet another flute tip of the week. So this week I really wanted to address something that can be very difficult for some people, and that is really looking at the details. One of my students, I'm always hounding him about looking at the dynamics, looking at articulation, and really this is something that can be difficult for anyone of any age or any ability on the flute or otherwise. Without further ado, let's get right into the down and dirty details. When learning a piece, print out multiple copies of the piece and use them for different details. Use one for dynamics, one for tempo changes, one for rhythm if need be, and then you'll have the original and leave that clean. What can really bother me and basically any orchestral musician a lot is that when you get a score that is rented and someone has written all over the page. There's so much pencil in there that you can hardly see what the composer wrote. But at the same time, the person who used it before, they didn't need all of that all the time. Most of those markings probably were only needed for getting to know the piece at first. I'm not talking about directions about the conductor or watching someone and stuff like that. I'm talking about where they circle a note that they made wrong a couple of times and then they just leave it there even after they have mastered it and they don't need that circle there anymore. So this kind of work with very precise understanding of the sheet music will help you prevent that, and it'll mean that when you're playing your piece in your performance, it's going to be a lot more calm in your head because you're not going to have to get through all of the lead to get to the actual core of the music. What I've done is to avoid copyright problems in terms of showing a score for too long a time. Because we're going to be doing a lot of writing and everything, I did photocopies of the first page of my own composition, which was published by Little Piper in 2013. I'll put information about it at the bottom in case you ever want to take a gander. But the reason why I wanted to do this especially is because there are a lot of directions in this. There are very specific dynamics and tempo changes, and also the rhythms are incredibly important. I wanted to use this because this is going to be the best way for me to show you just how easy and how helpful using this kind of system is. So as I've said, this is the beginning of the first page of my composition. What we're going to do first is we're going to look at dynamics. So for this I'm going to use a red marker. Basically, it's really simple. Just start off by writing in the little dynamics. Let's not do too many more than that, but right away you can see how it brings your attention to the dynamics. So this is really helpful when you're first doing a piece because basically it means that when you're playing it, you're immediately focusing your attention on the dynamics. Okay, so we've done dynamics for a bit. Let's look at tempo changes. I'm going to use light green. Just using different symbols as well can be really helpful. For example, if you have an cello that is short lasting but you want it to be quite forceful or very obvious, you might do a double arrow like that. Or if you have something like this where you have like a poco cello, you could do it that way, so that you're reminded that you do need to speed up, but also it just reminds you not to go too far, because that's always a problem, especially with contemporary pieces. You can often over-accentuate dynamics or tempo changes and stuff like that purely because you're thinking, hey, this is contemporary. So we've done dynamics, we've done rhythm. Now let's look at rhythm. For quite a bit of this, as you can see, there are a lot of meter changes, and that can always be a little bit difficult to maintain, especially in contemporary music. Like, dude, have you ever seen Boulet's Sonatine, Opus 1? We're going to be using the yellow marker. Really, this just helps you bring attention to rhythms and to making sure that you have an understanding of where the piece has to go. So the reason why I'm saying you need to do it this way is because you want to avoid this in your music. It's a little bit easier to understand since it does have the color coding and it's not just all black and all the same tone so that it feels like everything is the same degree of important. It's already making it so that your focus is more on the different aspects of it rather than the music itself. That's why it is so nice from there to suddenly be able to see the light that is the clear original. So really, that's why it's so important to have different versions that you use. Because if you have too much information then what you really need to know gets lost in essentially the matrix that is colored pencils and just plain lead. So again, that tip was make multiple copies of the music you're working on. Make one version specifically for rhythm, one for dynamics, one for perhaps paying attention to melody or tempo, and then have the original where you only have a few bare necessities that you just want to remind yourself of, and it's just a lot more clear to understand. I hope this tip was helpful. This is something that I use personally all the time, and I recommend it so much to my students, and it is something that just helps you keep things organized in your head. Flute happy, learn happy. I'll see you next week. So yeah, I ended up getting a call from Sir James Galway today. He's watched all of these, and he likes them. Right track.